sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello and welcome back to RP-1 in Kerbal Space Program. In the last episode we made great progress in achieving our goals to go up and then come back down safely again. With that in mind, we're nearly completing our first program. Suborbital research will allow us to then begin getting the funding necessary to design our first orbital capable launch vehicles that will propel us into the satellite era. But before we do that, there are a few things we need to achieve. Number one, we need to complete this, which we are waiting on technology for, early science. That will be done in 44 days. And we also need to get more science in general from our biological experimentation and space film returns so that we can get all the necessary unlocks. So what we're going to need, likely, is this, and this. So we need approximately 28, 28, 38, 41, we need 48 science total to be able to afford. We have 12.5 science currently. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually bump early solid rocket engines up, and we're going to start launching a lot of aerobes. Now we had more aerobes on the way, but the purpose of these aerobes is going to be achieving biological experimentation, and because they're so cheap and we can keep just launching them over and over and over again, it's going to be really, really easy for us in that regard. I may cut out some of the missions or some of the launches, depending on how they go, and also just to speed up the content. I'm experimenting with a few things as well, but no, with those extra solid rocket engines, what we're going to do now is we're going to fit on the actual Aerojet SRB here, which is going to hopefully improve performance quite nicely. So we're going to go with that. So that now gives us, if we have a look here, that should give us 2,561 meters per second. We're going to take away the sounding rocket payload because we don't need that. Though we could look at completing... some of the contracts. Let me actually have a look at those contracts. They may provide us with confidence or some other benefits that we might want to consider. So 75 units, so 2 contracts, 2 to be completed. We don't really get anything from that. There are some confidence. So low space film return, for example, that provides us with 400 confidence. I'm going to accept that, I think. And we're going to launch this film return. Maybe not actually. We're going to duplicate. So we'll build another one. Okay. We're going to save this for now. Was that a mistake in taking that contract? It might have been, because that means we can't then accept. Yeah, we can't then accept first advanced biological. But we'll do that eventually because we want to get enough confidence for the next for these programs, right? We want to be able to accept these on fast, which is 600 in terms of cost, or 350 here. You want to be able to accept those ideally as quickly as possible because we want to get as much funding as quickly as possible. But no, in terms of accepting these, they don't seem to be providing with much benefit, and so we're not going to do that. I'm going to scrap this one, and I'm going to edit this to have the newer SRB, as well as get rid of the conventional payload to increase our delta V to get us higher out of the atmosphere and get more science from our biological experimentation. So if we go over here, we're going to do this. Did we not unlock? We must not have unlocked it just yet. I'll have to wait. Maybe I didn't check it correctly. Oh yeah, because the thing rolled back. Yeah, there we go. Complete the solid rockets engine. There we go. Make sure we're researching the correct. We are doing the correct one. And then we're going to get up to material science. Now, in terms of launch vehicle, in terms of auto launch vehicle, it's really going to depend on the engine capability that we have. at this time. So it's just about getting as much science as possible now. So we're going to go with RP-2B. And with that in mind, that gives us a total delta V of 2662, which is pretty good. We're going to actually reduce this slightly to help increase delta V even more. So we're going to go with 2B. We're going to hit save and edit. We're going to purchase ourselves the Aerojet SRB. And then we're going to build probably 3 of them. They take about 51 days to complete. As you can see, our efficiency of this has gone up to about 30%, so we're nearly at max efficiency that we can achieve here. Obviously, we can get a better tech, but that's going to be a little bit of time before we can achieve such. All right, let's launch our first rocket of the day. That's going to be the RP-2B. Make sure it's daytime, nice and early in the morning. And we're going to launch this. Hopefully we'll be able to get up to like 250, 200 kilometers. The longer we spend in space, the better, because that's where the majority of the science is going to be for the biological experiment. So let's get ready to rumble. Ignition up and fire. And the engine failed on start, which is not great. I guess, well, we can't recover the vehicle. And we can't change it, so ignite the engine. And I guess we're going without the SRB. I doubt this is going to be too effective, but we might as well launch the bloody thing. But that is so unlucky. For an SRB to fail, the chance... That's so anticlimactic. For an SRB to fail, it is extremely rare. But we are still going to get some actual science out of this. Despite the fact we're actually going to get past 140 kilometers, which is pretty impressive considering the fact that, again, the SRB failed on ignition, which is, again, extremely rare. SRB is considered extremely reliable since it's literally just start the thing and it just goes. There's no, it's just burning a fuel down a nozzle. There's no complicated machinery or anything like that. And we're going to head straight back down as well. We arm the actual chutes, and like every other mission. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to, for these missions, I'm just going to time lapse through them and kind of say, oh, we did this. So I'll be kind of cutting a lot of this kind of stuff out, just because it's not the most interesting. We've done this kind of mission before. It's necessary though for achieving the necessary science for our goals. And we're going to come to a soft touchdown here in Florida, about probably like 50 kilometers down range, or 40 kilometers. And we're going to just wait for it to detach. Overall, though, the RP's been pretty damn reliable for us. It's primarily just been the SRB failing. We have a 97% ignition chance on this, actually. And let's go for touchdown. That's the issue with parachutes. They always take a long time, but you got to come down softly, which means you got to come down slowly. And touchdown. There we go. So with I think some of the fins broke off, but either way, that gives a little bit of science, but not as much as we would have with the SRB actually igniting properly. So it's a bit sad on that. But now we can look towards early science. 5 science is still 5 science, but early science is what we want here. That now gives us access to advanced biological experimentation, and advanced biological experimentation is what is going to allow us to do our program, and we're going to do it exactly right. Let me actually check the contract requirements. I do believe we need some sounding payload for this. So we already have the rocket in store that we'll be using for it. So first, advanced biological, we need 200 units of sounding payload, and we need an advanced biological experimentation, and we need to lob that thing 2,000 meters per second. And we need to get it into space as well. So it's quite more serious requirements on the vehicle. In fact, we might have to design a new vehicle or just this vehicle to achieve such a thing. So we're going to take these off. So the requirements state that we need to reach 2,000 meters per second with a minimum altitude of 140 kilometers, and then we need to recover the sample. However, we don't need... Okay, so first off, we're going to need a tank. We're going to need a conventional tank, and we're going to need to bring this tank up to aluminum. We might have to adjust the fuselage out. That is consideration. But high pressure aluminum fuselage, we're going to need to have sounding payload, conventional sounding payload. We need 200 units of it, so that's liters, I guess, of the actual payload. So we need 200. 101. There's 130 kilograms of that payload. We then need to put on the advanced biological experimentation. We're actually just going to fatten this up just so that it gets nice and line for the re-entry phase. Okay, there we go. Perfect. And then we're going to need both an avionics and a parachute. So for the avionics, we need to slim that down. We also got the post-war avionics, which we can put on it. But we're going to do this. Then with the chute, we are going to bring previous size. We're going to make sure it's applied correctly. Good. And so that is what we need to put into not orbit, but put up into space. Now the question is, how much delta V do we achieve? Do we have from that? We have 3,151 meters per second. So we're going to do a quick simulation. We're going to do bio return. And we're going to make sure that this vehicle can actually do the job we intend it to do. So we don't have another issue like we had with the Aerobee. So we're going to need to reach 2,000 meters per second. So we're going to shoot straight up. If we shoot sideways, that might be a better idea though. But we need to get into the upper atmosphere. And this is going to be a pretty difficult mission in terms of delta V requirements. We may have to, again, do kind of an overhaul of the vehicle. So yeah, let's go for smart guidance. Ignite engine. And descend. Okay, we're going to see how well we do. Just going straight up. Well, the rocket died there, so we're going to revert the simulation. Looks like the guidance didn't do correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing we did with the film return. I'm going to not 4x time warp it. So ignite. And launch. Okay, we're going to begin a small pitch maneuver. Let's do 75 degrees. Again, it's a lot of G's that we actually pull here with this because the amount of acceleration generated from this engine, because it's very high thrust for a very low weight. It burns relatively quickly. Again, we need to reach 2,000 meters per second, or a speed greater than 2,000 meters per second. 28 seconds, 27. Okay, we're 1 kilometer per second. Okay, we're very, very cutting it closer. Okay, speed greater than 2,000. Okay, so we need to reach a speed greater than 2,000 and get above 140 kilometers, which is that's a difficult prospect right there. So we are going to have to overhaul this vehicle. That means we're going to do a few things. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to change out the primary tank to use the aluminum tankage. That'll give us some additional delta V. We're going to also change this tank out for that. That gives us 3,500 meters per second of delta V. And we're going to change out the engine as well. We're going to tool this design. Can't afford it, so we're going to have to wait to afford this. And we're going to go for a X81 XR41 engine, which is kind of the uprated version of the A4, the Americanized version of it. XLR41. She's a lot more thrust than the other engine, so it's going to do pretty well for us. So we're going to go for this, I guess 3,500 meters per second, and we can increase the fuel allotment to the vehicle. And we have a burn time of 70 seconds. So that gives us a much higher thrust to weight ratio. So we're going to simulate this design. And we're going to see if that will achieve. And we're going to launch straight up because we need to get up to altitude and be at the same speed to achieve our objective. And any kind of pitching is going to keep us lower in the atmosphere, which is not going to fulfill the requirements of the mission. It's also going to make it harder for the actual recovery. So we're going to go ahead and ignite the engine. Make sure we have what we need, and we're going a lot faster, as you can tell here. To launch straight up. And again, we need to get to 2,000 meters per second at 140 kilometers. That's what these are the requirements we need to reach. The atmosphere doing atmospheric things onto the vehicle. But so far, so good. We're above 13 kilometers. LV-wise, this is looking much better already. Yeah, this is the hard part. This is where the pressure comes in. Okay, over 2,000 meters per second. We need to accelerate. Okay, now do we reach 140 kilometers before we go back? And I think we do. Okay, that is successful. This design works. Okay, and we should be able to survive a re-entry just fine. I'm not going to test that. I think we are good for that. So we now have a working design for our needs. However, we're going to need to wait to get the necessary funds to both tool and then ready this craft. So we're going to accept this as Bio Experiment V2. I'm going to just cancel the edits. I'm going to have to wait for additional funding to come in before we actually do anything here. Well, actually, in terms of money, we're not doing the greatest at the moment. Why not? I guess from the aerobees. Yeah, I'd imagine from the aerobees. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and launch these, and I'll get back to you when we are ready to launch the advanced biological mission. Okay, with those launched, we now have a plethora of science. So we're going to spend that science into basic rocketry, satellite aero material science, 1956 to 1957 orbital rocketry, avionics prototypes, satellite aero research, and then we're going to need a little bit more science for these two, and that will be all the science we will, or all the technology we will need to launch our first orbital capable rocket that will give us a successful first few satellites. So, before we do anything, we now have our two film return V2s ready to go. We just need to wait for some additional funding. However, that funding is relatively slow. So I'm actually going to fire. I think we're going to start firing some of these. We're going to fire you. Some of the engineers, as we don't really need them. We need about 9,000 resources, or not 9,000 funds, something like that. So we're going to go ahead with that. We're going to go to edit, and we're going to get the vehicle ready. Unfortunately, it's been a little slower than I wanted to. We've been delayed, and that's because I should have built them a bit differently than how I did. I should have had this all prepared anyway beforehand. So we're going to do BioX. So that should have the delta V needed. Let me check. Looks good to me. Using the alpha fuselage. Yes, it is. Okay, cool. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to edit the vehicle. We're using some of our subsidies to offset costs. And we're going to get that vehicle hopefully into the air as quickly as possible. So We also nearly have early material science done as well, but we need that additional funding so we can start looking at hiring more researchers to really get our research going, because we've got a lot to get through. All right, here we go. We're going to launch our new V2 with the advanced biological experimentation on it. So again, we're going to just launch straight up, and hopefully engine does not fail here, because an engine failure here could be quite bad, though we do have a backup in case of an engine failure. Ignition and launch. Okay, so far so good. Let's check our Delta V. Delta V's here. Let's check the flight recorder. You see altitude, and we can see acceleration. Our change in velocity, surface speed. Got 28 seconds left on the engine. So far, so good. Just a little bit more now. And we've got it, I think. We think we've got it. Alright, very good. Cut off. Bearing deploy. Stage. And we're going to make sure that we do have the telemetry analysis. Probably should have put some of the other stuff on it as well. However, this should be successful. 140 kilometers is all we need to get to, which we should be able to get to before our speed runs out. Okay, we're good. All we have to do now is get back down to the Earth. Now we should come straight down, and the blunt surface of the bottom of the object should just burn through the speed. This is being so close is a bit annoying, but we will slow down. That will slow down much quicker than us. Okay, here we go, and yeah, there we go. That got dicey for a second there, but we got through the atmosphere just fine. And that should mean that we got a soft touchdown and a successful contract here, which means that we've completed our first program in RP-1. Big success, and this will get us the real funding we need to be able to actually achieve orbit. Shoot deploy. There we go. And we then begin our final descent. But the next things that we need to do before we can really go to orbital, though, is we need to do 3,000 kilometer and 4,500 kilometer downrange contracts. With both of those done, we can then complete that second program, and that will allow us to advance even further. But we still need to prepare for our orbital rockets, which is going to take a lot of design work, and we're going to get into how we're going to do that relatively shortly. This is Splashtown, and we've completed the contract as needed. So now we can go ahead and complete our program. And we're going to need to make a big choice here. This is going to be a big choice. So with that done, we go over here and we can hit complete program. So we'll get 70 additional reputation. We complete it, and we can now pick between either early satellites light or early satellites heavy. One of them gives a lot more funding than the other one. However, the first one is a lot easier in some respects, but I would say that the early satellites heavy is much better overall for our funding. However, we don't have enough confidence to take it on the one I want to take it on, which is going to be on the faster speed. And so that is why we're going to need to go over here, and we're going to need... can we not do that here? We might have to... Why can't we do low space film? Oh, it's because we can... Oh, I shouldn't have completed it like that. But we can do downrange distance. 240 kilometers with 500 units of sailing payload. That's perfectly fine. We can do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our film return, and we're going to edit it. And then we're going to get confidence using this, then allow us to get the higher level of satellite funding, so that we can get our development program fast-tracked with a 5-year deadline instead of like a 7-year deadline. So we're going to adjust this. We don't need anything else. So I'm going to change this out for the BioX. All we need is sounding payload. So we're just going to increase the height of it. And we need how much? We need 500 units. That's 400 kilograms of the stuff. So we're going to do that. We're going to tool it. There we go. And then we're going to save and edit. And then we're going to launch this V2 for the contract, which should be pretty easy to accomplish. And so if we go over to here, we got that going. So that'll be 840 confidence, which will give us enough to be able to do heavy satellites on fast, which is what we want. So let's get that going. And we're also going to need, we need to get this done as quickly as possible so we can start getting that funding rolling in so we can start hiring the additional researchers. Let's launch this rocket downrange. But yeah, in terms of the actual orbital rocket, I'm thinking of something a bit in between an R7, as you'll see on screen now, and a bit more than, let's say, a Thor rocket, right? We're looking for maybe 100 to 150 ton rocket, or orbital launch vehicle, and what I'm going to be doing in terms of design work for it is I'm going to kind of be giving my thoughts of design over a time lapse. And you'll see that as we go into the design of the actual orbital rocket vehicle itself. So yeah, let's do our pitch maneuver, as we're getting very, very close here to being able to get out of the era of small launch vehicles, right? And not small launch vehicles, but suborbital sounding rocket research. But yeah, downrange, we're going to be going downrange here. Hopefully we'll be able to accomplish the task. It's only, what was it, 240 kilometers? Yeah, that's easy. The amount of Delta V we're packing on this thing. And we're out of the harsh parts of the atmosphere. So we are going through it again. And there we go. And we should be able to reach downrange here pretty easily. We'll be at 40 kilometers downrange. And we've got the necessary sounding payload as well on the vehicle. There we go. And yeah, we got way more than enough needed for that. Now we can begin to head back down to Earth. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? With that complete, we can just go over to here and do range safety. No need to waste our time any further. We don't need to recover the thing. We just need to have launched it. And with that now done, we can accept the program, get the necessary funding in, and this is where the funding's really going to start to roll in. So if we go over to administration building, we're going to do heavy satellites. On fast, we need to get our deadline is the 9th of July 1958. We will receive 1 million funds. We do lose quite a bit of funding here because we're on Satish, but I'm perfectly fine with that. And we're going to go for fast here, and there we go. Early satellites heavy, so now you can see the funding has gone to nearly 200,000 funds, which is really, really good. So if we just wait a little bit of time, but before we wait a little bit of time, we can actually see our new contract. So we've got first artificial satellite, first scientific satellite here as well, which is pretty damn nice. But we are going to launch one more biological sounding rocket, and the purpose of which is just to collect the last remaining science that is in the atmosphere. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to build one of those, and we'll build another one as well, just in case that we need to do so. But the main thing that we need to think about is going to be building the launch complex for what we're doing. Okay, that's a lot of science we just got access to, so we're actually going to hire a bunch more researchers. And we need to get all of this research done as quickly as possible, ideally. Okay, early material science done. We should be able to get this guy done, and we're just going to keep hiring until we have 300 researchers. Good. Go. We are going to need to do the 3,000 kilometer down range as well, though. So got to keep that in mind. We're going to have to do the 4.5 kilometers per second down range. So that is something to consider. We'll probably have to upgrade the V2 launch complex to achieve that. And we'll have to wait on a little bit better research in terms of of engine technology. Oh, engine failed. Well, this rocket's done for. So while we're waiting on all of that, let's get to the design of our rocket. So let's begin, shall we? So here we are. So this is post me talking as I begin our design. So the first thing that I was primarily looking for is a vehicle capable of putting about 500 to 1 ton into low Earth orbit. So I started to play around with some engines. I was thinking, should I go for an American engine? This right here is the LR-89. But then I decide, okay, nah, I don't think that's going to work out. And I kind of dilly-dally for a little bit, but I decide on the RD-108. The RD-108 is an engine created for the R7 rocket in real life, and it is a very, very good engine at this stage technology. On screen you can see what a R7 would look like IRL and what the engine looks like IRL, but I still am kind of a bit up in the air about what engine I should go for, but I eventually do settle on this. I do make a decision though to change to isogrid tanks. So these are the newer tanks we get with satellite material science, and are what are going to really provide very low dry mass. Here I'm selecting the correct mount for the engine. There's a specific mount that fits the engine, and that will also inform the diameter of the engine that we will need, which will be about 2.15 meters. That 2.15 meters is going to be the diameter of the vehicle we're going to be creating. So I'm just sizing it up correctly here. But the RD-108 is a fantastic engine. It's flown from, I believe, 1955, when the first early R7 ICBMs, which was the original purpose of the R7, and has been flying until today, with the Soyuz rocket being the eventual evolution, and what most people now know it as, not the R7, but the Soyuz. And it's just a fantastically reliable, good performing engine when most of the engines around this tech level, especially from the American side and from the other European sides, are pretty bad. So I'm not adding in the fuel tanks because I want to get enough fuel. Now this engine is a sustainer, but I still want to be able to power the rocket by itself, and so we're not going crazy with the fuel tanks. Adding in the avionics, I decide, okay, we're going to need about 60 tons. Now you'll see here I make a decision that the rocket is going to need a lot of power on the lower stage, and we're also going to put in points here, which you can see on screen, for where we're going to be attaching boosters eventually. So the main purpose of what this rocket is going to be capable of doing is, first off, providing us with those initial early contracts, but also being upgradable and scalable within our launch complexes to be able to launch bigger and bigger payloads as our payload requirement necessitates. We're adding in just some additional fuel, making it look a little bit prettier. I'm going for this nice orange and white color scheme. I fiddle around with the smooth cone a little bit because I'm always a bit annoyed about the presets. So I'm using the custom option here and kind of playing around with that myself. I'm having a look at the total time and if I've got everything fueled up correctly, which I do. It's going to burn for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is the approximate time. Color it up, and I decided to call the rocket the Alpha-1. Though we won't be using this rocket initially, this is the foundation for what we will be using, as you'll see a little bit later. I'm then going to add in some additional detailing because I do like to make my orbital rockets look pretty. I'm putting a lot more effort into this than I would with my V2s or with my other vehicles, as you can see here. So we're just going to do this. This is piping section. You might see this on a lot of different kinds of vehicles. So this would be transporting the fuel mixture between the two tanks, because inside a large tank, what you're going to have is you're going to have oxidizer and then your fuel. So in this case, that is kerosene, or RG1, and a very refined form kerosene, RP-1/RG1, and liquid oxygen, which provides the oxidizer for the fuel mixture. And that allows the rocket to ignite and fire upwards. So we're just doing a little bit more detailing here. I'm getting a bit annoyed with the sizing because I have to adjust it as needed. And you'll see that I actually extend out this tank further than it is even now. But I'm overall happy with what I've seen here. So this kind of vehicle, what it's going to be doing for us is going to be putting stuff into 150 by 150 kilometer orbits. The amount of delta V you need for that is around 9,000 meters per second of delta V. It does depend though. I'm even doing some additional detailing here with putting the name on the side because, you know, I want to brand the rocket, as this is really going to be our workhorse initially, as we need it to do a lot of our planned missions, right? So we're going to call it the Alpha. Maybe we'll make a Beta and then a Theta or something, different kinds of rockets. You know, we're not really following any kind of space program. We're mainly just following our own way of doing things. I'm then going to add in a hollow interstage because I decide, okay, I want to start kind of modeling after Soviet style rockets with hollow interstages where the engine would hot stage. A hot stage is essentially when the engine will ignite while the first stage is still going, the previous stage of this. So that means that you then don't need RCS or anything because the engine is ullaged, or the fuel is at the bottom of the tank from the G-forces implanted by the first stage. I'm making some decisions on what engine I should do. I have a look at the another Soviet engine, and I decided to go with this engine because it burns for a lot longer and it doesn't need those high pressure tanks. And so I'm like, okay, this seems like a pretty good engine. Unfortunately, as I said, our options are not too good in terms of upper stages. So I decide, okay, this will do for now. This is a good stand-in. And so we go ahead with the 2.1 and 5 diameter here as well. Add in the avionics. I separate avionics because that reduces the mass between the stages, though it is a little bit more cost prohibitive on the vehicle. And I just set up the correct staging. I'm checking the weights right now. I want to make sure that the timing and the weight is correct on the stage before I add in avionics. So this is good enough upper stage for what we need, though again, we're relying really heavy on the first stage here because this is a very weak upper stage. When we get the next level of technology, we'll be able to put in something much more powerful that will be able to do a lot more for us. So with that done, we're then going to add in a procedural payload adapter, and that's going to be where we're going to put in our fairings. I decide not to go with that long of a fairing. I go for a much smaller fairing because I think that the stage is so small that if I did the much bigger fairing, it might flip in middle of the ascent, and that could definitely be a problem for us. We have some issues with the engines clipping into the top of the bulkhead on the first stage, so I kind of raise that up a little bit. But there you go. That's about the rocket done. I'm pretty happy with it at this point. Just doing some colouring. And I'm then going to check the delta V as well as the fuel requirements, sort my staging out. I've come to the realization that this is not enough performance for what I'm going to be requiring. And so what I do is, and we'll see this when we go back into the video, when me live talking, is we decide to add in boosters. But for now, I'm kind of middling around. I'm saying, okay, maybe if I lengthen the tank out, and I'm looking at delta V, I'm like, it's just not enough. And as you can notice, you might see the sea level thrust, or SLT, is at 1.111, which means that it's going to be a really hard ascent, which means we need a lot more delta V than we would usually need. So I'm looking at around 9,200, 9,300 meters per second, not 9,000. These little margins here really matter heavily. And so I decide, okay, we start simulating the rocket, and we start to put together a launch base from modular launch pads, just to make the rocket look nice, and we might as well do it anyway. A lot of options here that we can do, and we're going to sort ourselves out with launch clamps. I use these launch clamps because sometimes the rocket can start swaying at the pad, and these ones always make sure it doesn't. We add in a small launch tower. I'm looking for it at the moment. There we go. And some additional umbilicals on the side to keep the rocket attached. And yeah, there we go. There's Alpha 1. Pretty successfully set up. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed a little post-commentary. Okay, and after that little bit of time-lapse development and me kind of talking about it, we are going into a simulation for the vehicle. So, you know, as I said, this is more of a starting point vehicle. This is where we start our development process. It can only get about 500 kilograms into orbit initially, which isn't going to meet the primary contract requirements, but once we add onto the vehicle, it's going to be able to do so pretty easily. So let's actually We need to use PVG. If you don't know what PVG is, it's ascent guidance. It's how we fly most of your rockets in RP-1. We're going to turn on hot staging. What the hell? We're going to turn on hot staging, and we're going to make sure that we're on the correct stages. Like it. Stop at stage 2. We're going to launch to 150 kilometers because it's maximum payload. And ignite. And the rocket falls back at itself because I forgot for the avionics. How typical. So we need to just increase avionics to 70 tons. And simulate. Because the requirements call for about 1 ton, but 450 will do some of the contracts, and the initial ones as well to get just a satellite into orbit, and then also potentiality for going to the moon. But yeah, so let's go with this. Ignition. And lift off. Right, and we're on our way. Also, I need to sort these out as well because I did lengthen the core out. Delta V's not looking great. Okay, getting ready for hot stage. We are off. I want to check if coasting. So rockets can coast. Coast basically means that they don't fire the engine until a certain point after the previous separation. So we would coast to a period and then fire. Sometimes, depending on the guidance situation, that can be better or worse for our needs. It looks like that would be much better. And so what we're going to do, we're going to return and we're going to add in a RCS package to ensure that we can actually control the second stage before launch. And considering the fact that we won't be hot staging the thing, we're actually going to change out the hollow interstage. So let me just grab this, avionics, hollow interstage, and then we're also going to grab that out of it. And instead, we're just going to put in what I like to do, which is just a hollow fillet decoupler, and then inner area, and then fillet it, get rid of the fillet, and then add it upwards. And then this will be what we'll use for decoupling. So we'll just have a normal interstage. 2.15. And then change that around. Right. And then we can just move that up, offset it up. And we can then add up that interstage, put that in. Cool. And we're also going to lengthen these as well. Just want to make sure that looks correct. There we go. So that's alpha 1, and then we're going to take this off, and we're going to add in some RCS. So what I mean by this is we're going to add in some RCS jets. These are internal RCS. This is how things would look more normally. We're going to add in 4 on each. We're going to use high pressure hydrogen tetroxide, high test peroxide, my bad, high test peroxide, which means is a high concentration of peroxide monopropellant. So we're going to put these in. and then we're going to add them under for ullage. So to ensure that we can actually start the engine in flight, we're going to add these. Well, just under. And we're going to put the rest of the attitude thrusters in as well. There we go. That's perfect. We need to actually add fuel for it though. So we're going to go over to here and we're going to add in a little bit of fuel. So I'm going to actually lengthen out the avionics slightly and we're going to add in some HTP, which is a bit more than I'd want to. So I'm going to add in 500 of this. And then the rest is HTP as needed. Yeah. So we're going to do the coupler, and do this. Okay, that is pretty good. We need to make sure staging is correct. So we're going to do this, this, this. It does reduce our delta V slightly, but it does give us more controllability over time. This is 300 kilograms. Obviously, we'd want something like 500 kilograms. We are going to need to add additional boosters and other things to achieve that, though. Let's do Alpha 1. Let's simulate that again. And this kind of gives us the idea for the size of the launch vehicle we want. We're then going to add boosters, and we're going to then build the launch complex that we need for the vehicle. I think that's where we'll end the episode off once we've got that done. Right, so first things first, we are going to not hot stage, we're going to auto stage, 150 kilometers. Launch, this is 500 kilogram payload. We have very low SLT on this because this is a sustainer engine. We need boosters, generally speaking, for this kind of a payload. That's actually one worse. Well, it's 500 kilograms. Yeah, it looks like it would need to ignite anyway. So that's it's not great, is it? So we need 400 meters per second on top, which doesn't really make sense for us. So the extra RCS is a little bit much. So yeah, we're gonna go. We're gonna go back to what we had before. I'm gonna get rid of the RCS. We're gonna just do hot stage, and then I'm gonna add in additional boosters, and then we can start to think about something else. So we're gonna just remove all tanks. We're gonna add in a little bit of electric charge, so charge, and then we're going to add in the hot stage or the interstage. It is hollow. Up. There we go. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 boosters. So we're going to go 1, 1, and we're going to get rid of the RD-108s, which we used. Like we're saying that we're going to get in the RD-107 instead, which is the booster engine. And we're going to change out the mount for the RD-107. So we're going to use both of these, and then we're going to bring them up like that. We're going to shorten the length of these, as well as the length of these. I'm going to bring them down, and bring this down as well. Okay, good. Take away the text. Fantastic. I'm going to add in the couplers. I'll add 2 decouplers. Or 4 decouplers works, I guess. I'll add in 4 boosters. We don't want to do a full rocket like that. So we're going to do 2 boosters like that. but we need to make sure they're actually orientated the correct way for the offset of thrust. So we're going to go for this. We're going to rotate. Rotate these around. Offset. Make sure they're in line. We need to change this. This is a little bit not rightly offsetting. I'll just adjust the engine. There we go. That works enough for me. That looks okay. So with that added, that gives us the, so they would all ignite, then they do that, then they change. That gives us 10,700 meters per second, which would then allow us to do quite a bit more payload. We're talking, on that get over an SLT, we're talking nearly 2 tons to orbit. 2.2 ton orbit. 150 ton vehicle. Pretty damn good. I think this is the vehicle we should go for straight away instead of going for anything else. Now the upper stage is we're gonna eventually have to replace the upper stage because it's very weak, generally speaking, for our needs. So we're gonna go for isogrid, and we're gonna go for smooth cone, grid. I'm gonna do an offset, I think. So hollow. Do an offset kind of cone like that. Doesn't look great. No, we're gonna need to do an custom, I think. We can do something like this. Oh, that's a bit. That's just ridiculous. Change this out. Nah, the customs are just a bit weird, isn't it? We can do this. Yeah, do that. And then we can put this on both. Alpha, and then we're gonna bring those up. And that gets us a 150 ton vehicle that can put about 2.2 tons into low Earth orbit, which is more than enough for our mission requirements initially anyway. Of course, we are going to have to eventually improve that capability. So we're going to go for Alpha. We're going to call this the Alpha 3 because of its 2 additional, because of its 3 kind of 4s. So we're going to go, that's good. And then let me grab our general launch clamp. We're going to go for a rectangular sized hole like that. And we're going to go for 2 meters short. Bring it up. There we go. And then we're going to add in the launch stabilizer. So again, we don't really have access yet to a really good kind of upper stage. So we're going to have to make do with what we have, which is kind of a placeholder stage until we can get a better one. Just and we do want to make sure that's fine. That's fine. Looks good. Then make sure everything is in the correct area. Separation. Booster's good. Alpha 3. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to simulate that. And I think this is going to be the launch vehicle we're going to be aiming to do launch in 1957 or 1958. It really does depend on how the funding and research comes in. We've got a lot to do. But this is more than capable for our needs, presuming that this works in simulation. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do fixed coast length 0. We're going to ignite engines and launch. We're going to make sure that we actually pitch over a lot faster than we were previously. We're going very, very fast. And we should see separation here shortly, but it looks like Delta V is lining up about right. We are losing quite a bit. Yeah, looks like it kind of overshoots here. Boosters go away. And we also probably want to get rid of this. There we go. Okay, we need to sort the salt staging out, but that works either way. Okay, that's going to finish us off. About 16 meters per second off the actual mark here, but it doesn't matter too much. Either way, that is a successful launch vehicle, and we're going to start building a launch complex needed to support that vehicle. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Been doing a little bit different things this episode as we start to look towards orbit. Thanks to the members for supporting the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.